Welcome you to this story here, which we're back talking about with Nicodemus and Joseph of Arimathea. And they're discussing things about the ministry of Jesus in private. The night air in Joseph's private garden was thick with the scent of a crushed seam and the cooling limestone of the courtyard. High above, the Judean stars hung like silver lamps looking down on a Jerusalem that was bubbling with tension. Joseph sat on a low stone bench, his silk robes rustling against the rough rock. Across from him, Nicodemus leaned against a gnarled olive tree, its silver green leaves shivering in the moonlight like a silent witness. The only sound was the steady rhythmic drip of a small fountain nearby. He called us gods, Joseph, little gods. But he called us gods, Nicodemus whispered. His voice was tired. In front of the high priest's own guards, he looked at men trying to arrest him and quoted the ancient psalm, I have said, you are gods. Joseph rubbed his face, his eyes following the shadow of a vine creeping up the garden wall. The council was more than just ticked off, my friend. They're terrified. They see a man exercising a power that doesn't care about our gates, our titles, or our rules. Joseph looked toward the dark, jagged shape of the fortress sitting on the horizon. Our colleagues think he is trying to be a rival king, Joseph said, gesturing toward the Roman stronghold. But today, when he healed that man born blind, I saw something else. He didn't look like a rebel trying to start a fight. He looked like a master architect returning to a building that he designed. He looked like he was simply unsticking a door that had been jammed for centuries. He wasn't breaking the law, Nicodemus. He was fixing the world. Nicodemus stepped toward the fountain, letting the cool water run over his fingers. I keep thinking about the beginning, Joseph, before the world broke. Adam wasn't a slave to the earth. He was the one in charge of it. He had a dominion that was natural because he was perfectly in step with God. He was the first son of man, a bridge between heaven and earth. And now, Nicodemus continued, the orange glow of the oil lamp reflecting in his eyes, here stands this Jesus. He speaks to the wind and it sits down. He speaks to the dead and they stand up. He isn't just a teacher, he is the true Adam walking among us. When he says you are gods, he isn't giving us a fancy title to make us feel important. He looks like he's pointing out to what we lost. He's showing us that we were meant to have authority and dominion over the brokenness, not just make rules about it. Joseph stood up, his long shadow stretching across the herb garden. So the Jews have lost sight of the big picture. We've been so busy guarding the temple treasury that we forgot we were supposed to be stewards of the whole creation. Exactly, Nicodemus nodded. That's why he told me I had to be born again. It wasn't just a religious phrase. It was an invitation to get our original spark back. They have the Spirit of the Father. To have the Spirit of the Father live in us so we can function the way we were designed, to exercise dominion again. They stood in the center of the courtyard, surrounded by the smell of the flowers and the distant, muffled sounds of the city. The realization felt like a heavy weight and a light breeze all at once. Is it possible, Joseph asked softly, that God's plan wasn't to punish us for being weak, but to send his son to show us how to be strong again? Yes, to receive salvation, to be born again. That by Christ coming into our lives, it's sort of like he's given us the keys back if we're willing to receive them. I believe that's exactly what he's doing. The leaders are angry because he has authority, but Jesus wants us to have it too. He wants the blind to see and the earth to feel the touch of its rightful owners again. He's recovering what it means to be truly human. As the moon dipped over lower, the two men prepared to leave. They would have to go back to the Sanhedrin and sit among men who whispered about executions. They would have to hide what they knew for a little while longer. But the garden felt different now. The silver leaves, the rhythmic water, and the ancient stones didn't feel like a museum of the past. They felt like a job site, a place where the master architect was finally back at work, where God was at work among his people. We have to be careful, Joseph, Nicodemus warned as they reached the heavy cedar gate. Talking about dominion sounds like treason to the Romans, and it sounds crazy to the priests. Joseph gripped the iron latch and looked back at the quiet garden. Maybe so, but if he is who I think he is, the old world is already over. I'd rather be a student of the new than a judge of the old one. With a soft click, they stepped out into the dark streets. They were still in Jerusalem, but in their hearts, they were already walking back into the garden, learning about God's original intent and what will come in the future.